Welcome to the Millennials and Community Podcast. On this second part of the Interviewing the Dad series, we talk about creating a legacy, passing down what we want to the next generation, and bringing it all to a close to walk away with the best fatherly advice you could ask for. Thank you for being part of our community.
Now, Nino, Carlo talks at length about just, and he beams when he talks about how proud he is to have grown up watching just the amount of hard work that you put into your life to be able to support your family, your kids, and how much you've tried to instill that work ethic into them. So what I'd be curious too, how do you think of those ideas around legacy and creating something for your family and the younger generations that we could take away from? Like, what would your sense of advice be in terms of creating something meaningful for your children and for the future generations?
Well, I think as kids, like my dad came to Canada with $20 in his pocket, right? Couldn't speak the language, and he started an automotive repair shop. How do you do that, right? So I think as kids, we need, like Tom was saying, we need to, bring the family name up a couple runs on the ladder every generation, right? So, like I think I did better than my dad. Hopefully Carl will do better than me, and his kids will do better than him. And that's how you build wealth in the family, right? But they do say that, it takes 3 generations to build wealth and 1 to lose it, because that one generation that gets handed it for free will lose it in no time, right? So we have to be very careful to build it. And I think if we show our kids how, like, we don't even have to say it, it's the actions that our kids see. Like
Yes.
Carlo saw me go to work the day after that, and he picked up on that. I never, told him how many hours I worked. He just saw that I wasn't there. So I now would get up early and leave before everybody woke up. So I think it's our duty to build a family's wealth as generations go by.
Yep.
I want to say something about comparing, right? Because it's okay to pick somebody and compete with them, so you have the motivation to go to work and build something, but never compare, right? Because there's always going to be somebody with a bigger home or a nicer car or more properties or a bigger business, but you can pick somebody and compete with them and use that motivation to outdo them, because that will make you build a great company, right? Yeah, that's really all I have to say. There's a couple things that I want to mention when it does come to business. Don't try to do it all at the same time like I did. Don't start a business, have kids, buy a house all at the same time. Build your business first, because that's going to feed the rest of your life. That's going to feed the home that you want, the cars that you want, trips you want to go on, the kids you want to have. That's going to feed your life, right? So do it that way. If I can give you any advice to anything, is build your business first.
That's actually incredibly insightful, and that's very wise. I wish I had heard that during my 20s, right? And obviously, just to share with you, and again, I left the family home there, and Matthew being very young, and headed out to Vancouver on a job, right? And a lot of that is probably due to this conflict, right, between the need to establish one's career and also the tear of the family, right? And at that point, there was this need or perceived need to stay with the family, and very much a Calgary-based family, and there doesn't seem to be any motivation for exploring opportunities anywhere else, right? And I fought against that, right? And in part that's really one of the major causes of the family breakup, and so on, and the reason why I left. But and when you look at it, was that opportunity, in Calgary where we can keep the family together? Maybe, maybe not, right? But that was the path that I had to choose at that point in time. So I took the left turn and went out to the West Coast, right? So a lot of it, and you're absolutely right, just in terms of that point, it was it was a tough decision, right? Whether or not you truly want to pursue your passion, what you perceive to be your destiny or goals are, and or perceive to just stay with the same old, right? And just basically do the same thing and maybe keep on yearning, what could have been, and so on, right? So it's really tough. And for young people, and this is not really a direct advice or anything like that. It's just my personal experience. So think very hard. And I totally agree with you in that, family, if you can delay that a little bit until you have certainty in terms of where your life is heading in terms of a career. And then once you're sure about that, then you have the means and not richness and so on, but certainly have a method of supporting your family. So everything is built on a solid foundation, right? Can you imagine if you have 3 or 4 kids in total and you haven't had the opportunity to develop a career, so you're bouncing from job to job? That's when things are starting to get a little wonky, right? A little weak in the foundation. So where the home could potentially be less than solid, if you will, in terms of day-to-day life. So yeah, I totally agree with you. Spend a little bit more time, develop your career, and take a look at what your true, not just the momentary aspiration, but true aspiration is. Look down the road. There will surely be changes to the road that you're about to take, but just be certain that you're going in the right direction, right? Instead of already starting with a family and all of a sudden saying, "Hey, listen, this is not the path I really wanted at all," right? So you have to do a 180. Then sometimes that could be very hurtful, very damaging, and looking back, these are the choices young people would probably have to make and take a very serious stance on.
So, you both have now kind of shared this idea that you tried to do it all at once. You did the business, the family, the career, you did it all at the same time. And you can't turn back the clock to say, well, I would have done it differently. So for those people that are in a position where either they're going to be having families soon or they already have the beginnings of a family, but they're still trying to accomplish these things, what are some pieces of advice or some words of wisdom that you might be able to tell somebody about balancing that family life and that business career life at the same time?
Yeah, it is the good old proverbial saying, right? Nobody on their deathbed would say, I wish I spent more time in the office, right? And what people don't tell you is, if you haven't spent enough time in the office, your life would be a lot different. Let's put it that way. And it may not be a place where you wanted to go. So, that's interesting advice that people give you. But in terms of developing a career, trying to juggle a family, just understand what your priorities are, right? And this is by no means stringent or religious or anything like that. Make sure you set some time out for the family, right? We can all work hard, set at least one day or some time daily, to spend with the children if you have them, and so on, right? And work will always be there, but make sure you schedule your day properly. And there is no harm in telling people you work hard and long days, right? But you surely can spend and block out some time for the family, right? However little that might be, but make sure it's regular. And the family expects that they have exclusive time with you during that particular period, however little that might be. But also too, you have a lot more time than you think you do, even though you have busy day and so on, right? And the good old adage, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. You always find ways of doing it. And for example, I was going through university while, Matthew was being born and being an infant. And plus, I was still working at Safeway full time, right? While going to university full time and so on. So, those things. And if you were to think about it now before you start and saying, okay, school and family and work and so on, all full time basis, chances are you'll probably shy away from it. Okay, one of the three would have to be dropped, right? But when you're young and stupid, you just don't know any better. And then you're just saying, I'll do it until I fail something, right? And so you'd be amazed how much you can actually achieve, right? And so don't be afraid. Don't be shy about it. Just identify your goal and just give it all you have. And the family life has to come along for the ride, instead of being discarded. So, and, certainly, I think we all made mistakes in the past looking back now, but, generally, looking back, were there different things that I could have done a little bit better? Probably, right? I think we can all say we could do certain things better. But would I change the final outcome in any way, shape, or form? Probably not.
Now, Dad, for the audience, this might sound kind of strange, but I've always admired you so much for, once I became old enough to understand what it meant, I've admired you so much for the courage it took to do exactly that, to know that you were taking the steps to create a better life. And then in doing so, of course, by default, creating a better life for me and in the process, and the courage that it took to stand up and move and seek out that career and then go on to start your business. But of course, it did mean that we spent a lot of time apart. And I remember just being so excited for the weekends that you would come to Calgary. And I remember fondly all the times that we spent together going to movies, dragging you to laser tag. Like, I remember all these things like they're yesterday. And what I'm curious about is how, it's one thing to say you work long days, you put in long days, and you try to save some energy for the family. But of course, our circumstance was not unique. I'm sure there's somebody listening who's experiencing something different. Maybe they and father works in the oil patch, or right there's long distance working situations that families face all the time. So specific to our situation, like, what were some of the things that you had to balance or do to try to maintain the relationship that we did, which I'm very, very thankful for everything that you did to do that. But like, what were some of those intentional things that you had to do, given that we have lived a province away?
Yeah, no, it is pretty clear. And in terms of when your mother and I separated, there was a clear time slot, right, where I can spend time with you. I think it was a Tuesday evening from 7 till 8:30, and Saturday morning from 10 till maybe 12:30 or something like that. That's during when you were very young. And I was in Vancouver at the time. And obviously, you're starting a new career, and you're basically starting relatively low down the totem pole, right? Vancouver being such an expensive place to live. So it's not something that, first of all, there's no way I'm going to miss a visit, with you, right? And that was a, innate promise I made to myself, and probably to you too. You probably didn't understand then. But I remember having to drive after I got off of work, let's say on a Friday, about 6 o'clock or so, quickly go home to the suburbs in Vancouver here, quickly made some food, right? And get into my car and drive to Calgary. So that's 10 hours, 10 and a half hours, because at night it's fairly quiet, the highways, and you can make pretty good speed. And then you stop at Kamloops and Golden, and then so on. And I would generally arrive at about 4 in the morning, maybe 5, and sleep in the car for about 3-4 hours, and then come visit you, right? And those were tough times, right? So, but I'm glad I did it looking back, because I would have never forgiven myself if I basically saying, this weekend is probably too tired, and just give them a phone call, be done with it, right? But like I said, those tough times, they never last, right? You'd be amazed how quickly time goes by. But looking back, that was something that I would have never forgiven myself had I not done that, right? So again, those are the right moves, and it's always tough, right? And again, I'm not saying this story is unique to myself. There are other parents out there doing exactly the same thing, but just never take the easy way out, right? Because you'll regret it if you did.
I'm just gonna say wow. I'm saying wow on that. Like I'm very blessed. My dad has been at most 45 minutes away from me at every time. Luckily, he calls before he visits. But that's the side of a household. Both my parents are still together that I never saw. So to hear that story and to hear, Tom, your commitment to being able to see Matt like that is very heartwarming and heartfelt, and I can feel the love that you have for Matt there. So, wow, thank you for sharing that story. That's a very interesting side to hear from.
Well, it's a tough story to tell, right? It's not something that you generally try to share with too many people because they probably don't understand, right? Why do you leave a young family to begin with? But circumstances dictate that it has to be done, right? At that point, anyways, as I understood it to be, right? So now looking back, and Matt is doing great and so on, there's no regrets in any way, shape, or form. So,
So, Nino, I question for you. My dad tried to get me interested into his business, and while I'm very interested and in awe of the things that he's done in his career, the projects that he's created, he hasn't been so successful in actually enrolling me into the family business. Now, I know that you've had much more success with Carlo in terms of enrolling him into the family business. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about your experience in terms of how you inspired Carlo to be a part of the business with you, and what's it like to have that level of a business relationship or a colleague camaraderie, if you will, in that way with your son?
Well, the first business I have, the auto repair shop, I kind of pushed him away from that. I didn't want him to go through the same life that I did, because I knew there was better lives out there to be led, right? So that one there, even though he did come in, he learned the basics and everything like that, that was good enough, okay? He could have probably, if he was in the business with me there now, he could have took over years ago, right? But I didn't want him to have that life. My dad didn't want me to have that life. I just showed up to help him, and I woke up 32 years later still in the same trade. Right? So I just made sure that he wasn't caught up in that life by accident like I was.
I would like to clarify. He paraded other industry veterans for an entire day. Lunch, coffee, over and over, these different people basically slapping me upside the head saying, don't do it. So when we say he steered me away, no, he like battering rammed me in the other direction.
Right.
Now, the second business that we have that I saw, now this was a true opportunity where he could be very successful and use, his qualities to the top, that he could become, one of the top leaders in the whole company.
Right.
And so that there, he didn't really have a choice either. As soon as he turned 18, he got forced to come out and check it out. And we said, you're in the business. No questions asked.
Right.
Because I could see that it was a life worth living, that he could do very well there. Right. And it steered him away from working with your hands to working with your mind. And I learned a long time ago that you can make a lot more money working with your mind than your hands, no matter how hard you work. Right? And he's kind of a natural leader, so he's good that he could build people and educate them and train them to help them build their own business. And in the end, everybody wins, right? And in our second business, everybody wins if you all grow together, right? So he's grown a long way. I'm sure it's partly because of the business and partly because he's gotten older and matured. And I think he can do great things there. That's something that we might be able to build together that we can pass on to generations to come.
One of the things that I wanted to say is, Tom, you made this reference to like very purposely setting aside time to, spend time with your family and with your kids. And I think your story was very evident that you did that. And I think the flip side for our story is that we're very much a DIY family. Like I grew up, we finished the basement together. When they built their most recent house, we did all the tile and the paint and the trim work and just all that kind of stuff. So even to this day, but when I was a kid, one of my most fond memories, like, I don't know, I was 4 or 5 years old, Dad was finishing the basement and he just gave me a 2x4 that he had started a whole bunch of screws and nails in. And he goes, here's a drill and here's a hammer. And he just let me go to work on it. Right. So I was always involved in the family DIY projects. So not only did I get a great skill set out of that, but that was our joint time together. We needed to do the landscape in the backyard. We did that together. And it wasn't just me. It was my little sister and my little brother. They maybe griped about it a little bit more than I did. Right. But I think the point of what I'm trying to say here is that it doesn't really matter whether quality time for a family is, a vacation on a beach in Mexico, which, we had those too, or if it's just being together, working on a family goal together. I think both of those can be just as impactful. But the key point of it is the time together. It's the very deliberate, as you said, time together. And
like Tom said, there's so much time in a day that people waste watching TV in the evening or doing nothing to grow or read or learn, right? Like I could spend 12 hours at the first business and still find time to be at their concerts and, go do things in the evening. It's just choosing what you want to do. If you want to spend it with your family and you're organized and you can schedule it all in, there's enough time for everything.
No, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely.
We've talked about a lot of things so far. I'm absolutely loving this on both sides. Every little comment coming out of Tom's mouth just makes me giggle as I watch Matt's facial expressions, because I've got everybody right in front of me right here. So this is a really great time. What if you were to say, hey, there's this one thing I have been trying to drive through my son's thick skull his entire life, and he ain't getting it, what would that thing be?
Oh, geez. That is tough. You know what? Matt is an incredibly intelligent man, right? Or kid, as I know him to be. And even though there are some things that he started that I don't necessarily agree with, eventually he will see the wisdom of my ways and what I'm saying to him, and he's starting to move off of it. One thing that is still a bit of a touchy spot with me is this whole thing about dancing, right? And
I knew exactly where you were going.
And it just trust me, nothing makes a father prouder when you see a 31-year-old man, just starting to twist his backside on the dance floor, right? With 6 women following him. And, and people just saying, Tom, you must be so proud. Oh, you just don't know the half of it. It's just like, I'm happy for him. I mean, that's great. But just at some point, Matt, you just have to grow up. And I say that actually now thinking back, that's probably to a high degree of jealousy more than anything else. But one time he showed up, here in Vancouver saying, yeah, I'm coming out. I have a couple of gigs I have to do. And it's dance size. And he started showing off his bright red runners and pink tights. And I just, as a father, you kind of look at that and just saying, oh, geez, this is not good. Where did I go wrong with him? But and again, it's something that he enjoys doing, and he's good at it, right? And the other thing that I actually have a good chuckle on is that he is good at so many things. But he said, "Dad, I'm coming out to Vancouver again." I said, "Oh yeah, great, fabulous. What are you doing?" "Well, I'm actually working a wedding." "Working a wedding? What do you mean working a wedding?" "Well, I'm actually an MC in Jewish bar mitzvahs." "Huh? Right? How exactly did you get into that?" And too bad, and I don't have a screen share or whatever, but we did take a few pictures of some of the sequin jackets that he's in possession of, right? And I tell you, between dancing and wearing a jacket like that, you're just saying, boy, any father would be so proud of you, son, and but that's something that this is more of a good laugh than anything else, right? But are there things that I would wish he didn't do? Well, sometimes he could listen to me a little bit more, certainly in the areas of financial advice. But just a few years ago, when I'm starting to tell him, look, you actually do have to put some money aside, right? Rainy day fund and emergency fund and so on. "Yeah, got it, Dad." And so he said, "Dad, I'm going to put a little bit of money. Where should I put it?" "Okay, try Quest Trade, right? It just you don't have a lot of money, but just put it aside." So I told him a few stocks, right? Very safe stocks to put in. And that's something that you can sleep at nights and you don't have to worry about it. Market go up and down and so on. I explicitly told him at that point, that's when the cannabis stocks are going through the roof, right? And Canopy and so on, right? And I explicitly told him, you can put your money in anything, Coca-Cola, what have you, doesn't matter, right? Microsoft, right? Disney, they're all good. And he said, yeah, Dad, I got it, and so on. And what happened? A year later, he kind of sheepishly told me, he said, "Yeah, Dad, I kind of listened to you, and I didn't. I actually did put some money in cannabis." And well, Matt, how did you end up doing? "Well, not well. There's nothing there now." So, and to me, that actually, looking back, that might actually end up being a very good lesson, right? Even though he didn't listen to me at the time. So I think it's a relatively small amount. So thank God for that. So hopefully that little lesson will forever be ingrained in his head, right? Don't invest in anything that will go up in smoke, so to speak.
This is a brilliant double entendre. Well done. Quick on the trigger with that one. And I will have you know that I was just listening to all the advice that you gave me throughout my childhood of how important it is to be a really confident orator and a really to carry a strong presence. And you happen to mean it in the context of a boardroom, but I can't help that I took it literally and put on sequin jackets and speak on a microphone to hundreds of people. So, same impact. I listened to your advice. I just took it a little too literally.
Yep. Well, you and I would just work a different room, let's just say.
That's right. Mine just has a few more bright lights and a little bit louder music, but That's all. Nino, what about you? What are some of those things that you really tried to impress upon Carlo that you're still pressing?
Well, Carlo's a really caring, sensitive individual.
Yep.
And he cares a lot, especially what people say. So if I could press something on him, is to hit that switch. I don't give a damn switch. Hit that switch. He doesn't have that switch yet. If he had that switch, he would have a lot easier life. Right? You gotta really go and do what you think is right and not really listen to anybody, right? You could listen to, some of your mentors maybe and take some of their advice, but the naysayers, the people that are there just to shoot you down because they're too lazy to do it themselves and don't want to see you succeed, you got to turn those people off. And he has a hard time doing that, right? I learned a long time ago, just hit the switch. If you hit the switch, life is so much easier. So I'm working on him to see if he can do that. And it's not like you're not caring. You just know when to care and when not to care, right? the people that deserve caring about, and the people that don't deserve caring about. You just got to distinguish that, and you got to turn it all off, and you go build a hell of a life.
Yep. But presumably now the two gentlemen in front of us, they're in their 30s, early 30s, and so on. And presumably we have taught them well, or at least they have enough of a life lesson now that they are in a good position to discern what is right and wrong, right? And not to say don't listen to anyone and just stick to your own mind. Always listen, right? Because you never know where you will find some nuggets of truth somewhere, right? That would help you to even go onto your path even easier, right? Or make your own life a little bit easier. So never tune off everyone, but just know what you're listening to, right? And the source and the motivation of that message, right? Some of it is absolute noise, right? And there are reasons why people want to put you down, but in that itself is a lesson as well, right? And so take it for what it's worth, and everything makes you stronger, and it really does. The only time where it makes you weaker or less a person when you're ignorant to the lessons that's all around you, right? Just be open to everything that life gives you, right? That's really the only advice, a true fundamental advice I can give to anyone. Be curious, be open to everything that the world has to offer you, right? Listen, don't tune things out right away. It may not be for you eventually, but give it some time. Think about things, deliberate, with yourself, with your inner self, and also with the people that are closest to you, right? Your family, your spouse, your partner, or what have you. So listen to yourself and proceed accordingly. So don't ever tune anything out right away.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So, Matt, I want to throw a little curveball to you and I, sir. This was not in our show notes in any way, but we just got the wisdom from the original, the V1s of each of us here. What kind of advice or nugget have you been trying to or wish to instill upon your father that you wish he would listen to?
Oh, this ought to be good.
So it's a great question. It's funny because I think in so many ways, when we started, my dad made a joke about the apple not rolling that far from the tree, and I, growing up, always used to make the joke, well, the apple tried to roll, but it came across a hill and then just came bounding back. And so when I spend quality time, I realize that in so many ways, I'm a mirror of my dad in terms of ambition, in terms of desire to succeed and have an impact, and admittedly in drastically different fields. And I mean that seriously, not as a joke based on the previous bit. But I think that I would encourage, or my advice would be for Dad, for you to listen to the same advice about patience and being curious and listening. I think that the older that all of us get, the more we become rooted in a certain certainty of how we think the world operates. And I think it can be really easy for us to take for granted that while history does repeat itself, new things still do happen each and every day, and that we don't, in fact, know as much about as many things as we think we do. And so I know you to be curious. I know that because I've come to the house and you've had a 30-foot radio antenna set up from the north end to the south end of the house, trying to pick up a radio signal from Japan. And so I know you to be a curious person, but I also...
It didn't work, by the way.
Well, you wouldn't... your Japanese isn't that great anyway, so you wouldn't have had much to say. But I think that in that, there's still so much room for you to continue to be curious, even if it's about things that you know that you've attained a level of mastery of in your life, and to know that there's still room to listen, still room to grow, still room to learn.
No, that's absolutely true enough, right? And if you, I don't know about you, Nino, and the way I look at my life right now, right? I'm at 62. and looking to retire fairly soon. And if you look at my parents, my father passed away at 94, and my mom is still going strong at about 93, and so on. So it's reasonable to expect, that I will have a few more years left, right? So I look at my first 30 years as a bit of a period of self-discovery, if you will. I like to label things, right? And then from the second 30-year period is basically building a foundation, family, having a home base, having a solid career to call your own, and all those wonderful things. And I was fortunate enough to do a lot of traveling for work and actually for leisure, for that matter. And now, as I go into the back third, if you will, it is really now for a situation of self-fulfillment, right? Based on the first 2/3 of the life, and then exploring new ideas, new places, and accepting new ideas, and so on, right? Because, quite frankly, my livelihood doesn't, need me to be very stringent anymore, to believe in one set of facts and so on, right? So I'm very open to everything, new ideas, new experiences, and maybe more traveling and so on, right? So again, that's why when we first discussed this, this whole session, the key word is curiosity, right? Be curious, because the whole life is laid out in front of you, depending on how hard you want to go on that road, right? And there are new experiences everywhere you go, and that's what I live for. So. And money is not everything, and it can help things make things a lot easier. But still, life is made for the living, right? Not for the spending. So,
I love that. Thank you for that. And all right, Carlo. Now this one's a little bit more high risk because you're within slapping distance of your dad. So tread carefully, but do with that as you will. What piece of advice would you give to your dad?
See, I'm not so terribly worried about getting hit here because I have some very genuine stuff that I've been thinking about for a long time. Dad, I see so much ability in you that you keep to yourself. Now, what I mean by that is, like, the conversation that we've been having over the last hour and a bit here is a rare occurrence for us. You don't share the wisdom, you don't share the insight that you have very often. And I know it's not because you don't have it. It's because I almost think that you don't realize just how much value that wisdom and insight holds. And I think when you look upon me and your other children, you look at us as very capable, strong adults, and we are. But I think that has almost led you to believe that we don't need your direction and your mentorship. We may be able to get by without it, but my one wish and my request of you would be that you more actively share that with us, because there are so many things that I feel like you could teach me that are just under the surface, but I don't know how to dig for them, and you don't know how to offer them up.
Wow.
So that would be my big thing I wish I could get through your skull is like, hey, give me the brain candy. I want everything that's in there.
Okay. Well, funny thing though, it's two-way street, right? You have to ask for it, right? Like, guys don't usually just, sit there watching a football game, having a beer and saying, hey, time out. Let me just give you a bit of my wisdom, right? I do that to Matt, but I don't know if you would do that to you there. So again, sometimes two-way street, right? Ask.
The listeners of this show will understand that I have no problem speaking words out of my face. That is not the problem we have here.
No, fair enough. No, but Matt and I, we, and he's never one to shy from asking or so on, right? If he has a question, he'll just come out and ask, either by text or even for work, right? And if he has a question or even a proposal, a tough proposal to write, and that's something I'm very proud of, and happy to do it. And he would send it and just say, Dad, would you have a look, right? How would you reword this, and so on. And to me, I'm so glad that he does that, right? And because that is in my own small way I can help, right? That I can again show him maybe a different way of doing things, right? That he may not be aware of before. So living apart, that's the only way that I can contribute. And occasionally he does come out to Vancouver and we would have very good heart-to-hearts, right? And now that he's grown up and there are things that I can share that maybe, during his younger years that I would be reluctant to do so, right? So, tons of good, and, certainly so glad that he has grown up to be where he is at now. And I think the road is still long. He's got the whole world ahead of him. And, but, looking forward to sharing all of that experience,
No, I appreciate that. Thank you for that, to both of you, for all of the wisdom. And I think that, my sense is we're getting to the place to start wrapping this up. And we have a tradition on our podcast that we like to extend, and it's an extension of a habit that we started quite some time ago as friends, and it's just taking the time to express gratitude. So I'll go, and then I'll get Carlo to go, and then we'll leave the last words in whatever form that takes to both of you, wonderful gentlemen. I just want to say that I'm so grateful for both of you. I think that there's still such a stereotype of, and it leads much to what we were talking about, of men not offering themselves up, not being vulnerable, pulling punches in some respects, and not sharing all of the things that are available to them. And I've been so blown away in the last hour and a half over the course of the episodes here, of all of the things that you've been willing to share, and the ease of which you've been able to share it in this platform, which is challenging in and of itself. And so I'm just so grateful that you would take the time to not only be here to share your wisdom with us, but to be a part of an endeavor that we've been working on now for a while. And that tells me how proud you are as parents, how invested you are as parents. And I'm just really thankful that you both took the time to be here with us, but also to share everything that you did. So thank you.
No, certainly happy to be here. But to be honest, though, before we came on, and certainly speaking for myself, I just thought, what do four Bubbas have to talk about? Just don't start dragging on. Let's talk about our feelings, kind of thing, because it'll be a very long 5 minute of a discussion, right? And but as it turns out, it's actually very interesting, just recounting some of our experiences and watching these two young men growing up, right? And then to the great people that they have turned out to be, right? So, extremely proud. And we can certainly honestly go to bed happy, and just knowing that we have, in a very small way, have some degree of input into that creation, right? In terms of the fine adults that they have become.
Yeah, I want to very much echo Matt's sentiment. It's when we do something like a podcast, like we were sharing a little bit beforehand about how we love doing this, but it's an uphill battle to get people to listen to us, to engage with us. We hear such great feedback from people, and yet it doesn't feel similar to what you were saying at the beginning of the episode, Tom. It feels like we're not being patient. We just need it now. We need this thing to grow and be massive, right? And I'll tell stories to Dad here, and I'll be like, "Well, this is what the latest episode is." I go, "Did you watch it?" And he goes, "Well, no, not yet." And you're like, I can't even get my own dad to watch the thing, right? And you know that it does.
By the way, I wasn't so different, so I share that same thing.
We know that it doesn't come from a place of malice. We know that it's just one of those things as we go on this endeavor. So to have you guys, one, be so willing to come on here and share this with us with that little bit of uncertainty of like, what the heck are we even going to talk about? And then to come on and show up in the ways that you have. And, speaking on a personal level, Dad is the quiet one in the family. He doesn't say a lot of words, but when he does, they're impactful and they're insightful, and they can even be funny sometimes. So to have him on here, and Tom, you to have on here, I'm so thrilled. I know that this is going to be an episode that Matt and I are going to discuss and look back on and replay and re-listen to over and over, because I think it's a very rare occurrence for two sons to have a recording of their parents telling them all the things that they believe in them about, all the things they're grateful, the things they're not grateful. Just like this is for me a once in a lifetime opportunity, and I'm just very grateful to have you both. So thank you very much.
Look, this is going to be copied by Dr. Phil very soon.
Bring it on, Doctor.
Well, and Dad, this can be part of our long awaited application to Amazing Race that we've been talking about for years.
Yeah. Okay. Your old man is actually getting old, so starting to lose a step. So you probably have to do all the running on a show like that.
I just want to thank Carlo and Matt for coming up with the idea and just getting us together to actually talk about things like this. When you go through life, how rare would it be to actually sit down and talk together? You can find the time and take the time to do it. It's just not, doesn't happen, right? So just thinking of the idea and inviting us out turned out to be okay, I think. So
yeah, no, it's actually interesting too. Obviously we don't know each other from before, lead very different lives, but, the circumstances and our opinions and views and advice for young people are actually incredibly similar. So be curious, work hard, and, go forward with the conviction. That's all you can do.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I think that brings us to a wonderful natural close for this episode of the Millennials and Community Podcast. I've been Carlo. This is my dad, Nino.
And this is me, Matt, and my dad, Tom.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. You know what to do, all those YouTuber things, like, follow, subscribe, share us. If you did not find some sort of fatherly wisdom ingrained in this episode, you weren't listening. So I go back, listen to it, find it, clip the audio, make it your morning alarm clock for encouragement. Get out there, get her done. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Hi guys, it's Carlo here. Thank you for listening to our latest episode. It's the support of our community like you that allows us to continue to grow and make this into something truly extraordinary. If you enjoyed today's episode and you would like to listen to it without the interruption of ads and maybe even experience some bonus content, I'd invite you to join us on our newly launched Patreon. And if maybe that's not something you can do right now, please consider liking, subscribing, sharing, and commenting on places like YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, all that good stuff. You'll find us under @Millennials and Community for pretty much all of those. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you again soon.